Good morning. Welcome to Milipol 2015. Today, our talk show subject this morning will be cybersecurity and big data. It's a very broad area, and I hope we can shed some light on this interesting and very relevant topic. I have three panel members with me today, and I will introduce each of them in turn, well, ask them to introduce themselves each in turn. So, please, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello Dan.
Yes.
How are you?
All right.
Well, my name is David Offer, and I'm the Vice President of iTrust, which is a company specialized in cybersecurity.
All right.
My name is Cyril Autant. I'm working for Thales. I'm in charge more specifically of the cybersecurity for sensitive information systems.
All right. And Olivier.
Good morning. My name is Olivier, and I'm working for Nexa, and we're doing data management system, big data management system, and information correlation for cyber intelligence.
Thank you. I want to start by asking about what is new, or what are new developments in the area of cybersecurity, big data, information security. I realize these are all overlapping terms. From your perspective, either personally or from the perspective of your company, what are the new trends and developments? I'll ask Cyril to start with that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not sure that, about cybersecurity, clearly, I'm working on that field for years now.
Yes.
So it's a reality, it's in our today's life. And clearly there's an overlap today on the two subjects.
Yes.
I think we clearly see now that the amount of data we have to handle, including for cybersecurity, the number of events, security events that you have to gather, that you have to manage, including also from open source and so on, is so huge that you need big data tools to face that. So clearly we need big data tools to face also cybersecurity threats.
All right. David.
Yeah.
So, developments, trends, things that are new.
Indeed, the amount of data actually is getting huge. The problem till now was that the technology was not able to treat and to compile such a huge amount of data. The development of what we call like buzzword, the big data, in fact, is tied to the development of the technology tied to database, with technology that we are using at iTrust, like NoSQL, Spark, Elastics, which technologies allows you to treat each data in a huge amount of data. And this point helps a lot when you are developing, for instance, software or appliance. Then you are able to treat a large amount of data, for which you can also do a separate treatment with spread out processing across different points. So what we can do today wasn't possible just by 2 years back from now. And this is a huge development, and this is also the reason we are seeing actually a lot of companies getting into this kind of technologies, because actually we have the tools to handle the big data.
Okay. Thank you. Olivier.
Yes. Well, I definitely do agree with what have been said. Today, a lot of data is coming from everywhere, and non-structured data. We have video, we have phone conversation, we have picture, we have email, we have everything, satellite communication, comment, edit. All this data is a signal, and among all these signals, we need to find the correct, right information at a certain time. This has to be almost real time among a lot of information. So definitely how we allocate the power of processing this information is crucial, very important. The management tool we are going to use is definitely something we have to take into account at the beginning of the project or program. And how we protect the data we capture is also something crucial, and that's where I think cyber security has definitely a big role to play in this area.
Thank you. we've all mentioned in one form or fashion or another big data. Everybody has a different interpretation of what big data means. I'm not sure we will get to the bottom of it in a talk show here. But with the advent of things like the Internet of Things, the one thing I think we can agree on is that big data is getting ever so much bigger. As more and more devices are digital in output rather than analog and are connected and interconnected, the amount of data is growing, in some cases, exponentially. Does this cause, in effect, a signal-to-noise problem? If we're looking for something in an ever larger pool of data, I think you've already alluded to that. Is this a problem? If we have a security breach, for example, in a very, very, very large pool of data, how are we ever going to find it? I mean, this is obviously an abstract question. Can the tools that we produce, that you produce, can they keep up with the size of the big data? Because big data will be bigger and bigger and bigger. So, if anyone wants to,
well, I'm ready to start on this point.
Okay.
Well, yeah, what you were describing, in fact, you have to separate two, well, let's say two subjects. The first point is tied to the big data itself.
Yes.
As I said previously, actually we have the tools to work on what is called the big data. Formerly, it wasn't possible to treat and to process such a huge amount of data, and in fact, actually, information systems are collecting as much as data as they can, because they can process and then can work on this data. Formerly, it wasn't the way people were working. So we used to collect only specific part of the data that were considered as important, but not all the data was collected because of this problem of processing the data. So actually, indeed, we are collecting the overall data that is possible to collect because the big data technology allows us to process and to analyze all this data. So this is the first part of the problem. The second part is tied to the cybersecurity issue. So concerning the cybersecurity issue, at iTrust, we've developed a tool called Rebellion, which is based on behavior analysis. In fact, we've been developing mathematical algorithms that are going to be able to analyze the behavior of your overall IT information systems and to pinpoint what is a non-normal behavior.
Yes.
And then we're gonna be able to detect if you have a cyber breach in your system. This is able with the big data technology, because formerly to treat such a huge amount of data, you used to do average of the data. So when you are doing an average, you are losing the weak signals, what we call the weak signals, which are just like the fingerprints or the footprints of what we could call a virus. So with the big data technology, we are able to analyze with our algorithm every single piece of data, and we are able to do a correlation about the overall data in the information system, and then to say if there is a cyber breach, so a cybersecurity breach in your system or not. This is the main difference between what we are able to do today and what was not possible to do yesterday.
Okay. Thank you, David. Cyril, Olivier, do you have something to add to that?
I fully agree with what was just said. I would add that there are maybe new challenges. One of them is the fact that before, when you were talking about cybersecurity, we were mainly focusing on security information. Yes. So you had sensors on your network, on your applications. You were gathering information from those sensors, and you were looking for something very specific. So this is exactly what we call the signature for antivirus, for instance. Yes. You know what you are looking for. And you are looking for that in very specific information. And now, when we are talking about cybersecurity, we also look at what is going on in terms of physical access control systems. Yes. I was talking about open source data. You are also looking on the web, on social networks, for instance, to gather also information which may be a threat for you. You know that people are talking about your company, about your systems. You know that a threat has been disclosed a vulnerability has been disclosed on one of your systems, you also have to take into account this kind of information.
Yes.
So you have to take into account various kinds of information. So this is something which is new in terms of cybersecurity and in the way you have to handle big data. And the fact to take into account the behavioral analysis is very important to be able to manage those new information and the fact that you do not always know what you are looking for today.
Olivier?
Yes, it's true that typically in French we say le diable est dans les détails.
Yes.
So typically we have to analyze any small signal, any small stress, and correlate this small stress with timestamps, with strange behavior, with different algorithms to be able to evaluate what is the effect, the physical effect of a cyber attack. So for a long time, a cyber attack was, oh, my computer is down, okay, not a big deal. Now, a cyber attack can turn off the energy of a city, can be much more dangerous.
It could cause billions of euros of loss on the stock market in a millisecond.
Even more than euros, humans.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah,
there is a human risk factor now
Exactly.
in front of a cyber attack. For me, the trend behind all that, the trend is to develop algorithm, which is what we all do in our company, algorithm which at a certain point will do a kind of predictive analysis of typical events with real-time correlation, correlation of totally different information.
Well, thank you for that. One of the things I want to talk about now is the evolving nature of the threat. When I first started in the security disciplines 25 years ago, a cyber threat really was a 15-year-old boy with a computer and a 2400 baud modem, okay? We all remember those days. And there wasn't, even people didn't have disk drives. They had, they had floppy disks, no hard disks. But now, we still face the lone attacker, the 13-year-old boy who wants to cause a nuisance. But we also have criminals who want to gain, for example, credit card details. But at the opposite end of the spectrum, we have entire state-sponsored, state-level actors. We have North Korea, for example, which by reputation is quite a serious cyber threat. We have the specter of Chinese economic espionage. We have on social media the now disclosed fact that there are entire troll factories of people in Russia paid to operate 10 or 20 or 30 social media accounts for the purposes of propaganda and disinformation. Where do you see the threat evolving? I mean, it's a very multidisciplinary, multi-vectored threat from every direction, but which way is it moving, do you think? And more importantly,
this is a difficult one.
More importantly, can we, either in terms of governments or institutions or companies, can we stay ahead of the threat? Or
The question is very interesting, but to speak about a point, you remember us a few years ago, they were 15 years old. I would say that some of them now are 8 years old.
Yeah. Yes.
but that's a joke.
Yes.
Actually, concerning the new threats, well, in fact, you have different kind of threats because, well, everybody is talking today about regular viruses, but the real threats are not these kinds because they are known. You know, where you are facing a virus, then the root of the virus is known. So when you have a good defense of your information system, then your firewall, either your antivirus, will find the virus that is entering your company or your institution. The problem is actually not at this point. The problem is that we are facing new kind of attacks that what we call at iTrust real cyber attacks, which are a piece of software that are specially developed to attack your institution or your company. And then we are facing at this point two kind of threats. or two kind of figures. The first one is tied to, well, let's say, governmental spying or industrial spying, where you have governmental institutions that are going certain countries, and I will not give the names, but everyone knows about them, are going to develop pieces of software that are going to get into information system to collect or to destroy system, depending on the goal or the target that has been defined. And on the other hand, then you have another kind of threat, what we call APT, advanced persistent threats, which are more economical spying viruses that are developed on mesure. That means that in fact you have like team of specialists that are developing this kind of software just to attack a specific target. And these specific pieces of software are not detected by conventional tools. They can get into your system, and then they can do whatever they've been developed for. Meaning by that it is easier to collect data for an industrial spying purpose.
Yes.
Otherwise, it is developed, for instance, to get a ransom from a company.
Yes, indeed.
We are facing this kind of threat regularly today. The last statistics we saw that at least in Europe, you have about 75% of the companies that have been attacked, but they don't especially know that this has been the case.
Indeed.
And this is very new.
Yes.
Because actually, to discover that you've been attacked or that you have been the victim of an APT, it takes approximately an average of 220 days.
Yes.
Meaning by that, that it is a very long time before you discover that you are attacked.
Yes.
This is the real problem nowadays. This is what I trust our company is facing every day, and this is why our tools are very specific, because this kind of attacks we are able to discover in few days instead of over 200 or 250 days. This is the real issue to answer to your question.
Yes. And you've hit on something very interesting here. An actual metric of success in the security area, which, whether in physical security or in cybersecurity, actually having measurable statistics on how good your security is a very interesting thing. So the period of time in which it takes to discover a data breach or a penetration, if we can measure that and reduce that, that's a very good thing. But back to the question at hand, where do we see the threat going? Cyril or Olivier, do you have something to add to this?
Where do we see the threats going? Well, I think one of the things we see the most, you said a few words about Internet of Things
Yes.
a few moments ago. I think that globally speaking, the threats are not only targeting standard mailing systems or file management systems and so on, but are moving also to industrial systems.
Yes.
The first example we had was a few years ago with the Stuxnet.
Yes, indeed.
Towards Iran.
Yes.
It was the first time it was well known and well understood that you could build a virus that could attack nuclear power. So it was very interesting for that, and we see that coming more and more at the moment. And clearly, the other point is that the situation moved from a technical war somehow.
Yes.
Some 25 years ago, it was mainly technical. Now it's economical. So the goal is clearly to be able to gather data, gather economical data, and so on from the enemies. So I think one of the points is moving to industrial systems, and also some attacks are more elaborated because they are targeting a specific institution, and they can also rely on several vulnerabilities on the access control, on the physical access to information, the logical access to information, social data. You can have an attack to deface your website, and in the same time an attack to get information in your system, because you will be looking on how to answer to the first attack, and then you will have another one that you will not see because you are facing the first one.
Right.
So we see very elaborated attacks.
Exactly, and you hit on another concept that has come up very much in physical security, an area which I'm much more familiar with. In physical security, it's called convergence, and the fact that so many physical security measures actually exist in the virtual space as well, too. As you say, access control, cameras, surveillance, intrusion detection. If these things are all working on internet protocols and all have IP addresses,
Yes, absolutely.
exactly, then physical security is a function of cybersecurity and vice versa. So that's an interesting point. Olivier, the threat,
So
from
the
your
threats,
perspective.
So the complexity is in our mind. The complexity is to evaluate how a digital attack, something which is digital, almost not real, okay, is going to change our analog life. Okay, a simple one. Okay, my back door is not opening because my domotic system is off. Okay, or it's been hacked. Very difficult to evaluate the physical threats when we set up an analogic system and a digital system. These two are communicating anyway because at the end of the day it's a signal. We are talking of collaborative cyber attack, which is very, very difficult to detect. It can come from everywhere. We didn't talk about the deep web and Tor and all this protocol, which is a total nightmare because it's totally black. On the other side, I know that there is today some a collaborative defense organization to answer this collaborative attack. More and more in the industry, and with some agencies, we are talking about that more openly than several years ago, where we were ashamed to be hacked. We knew we were hacked, but okay, I'm not going to say that because actually it's a little bit my business.
Yes.
Now we collaborate more and more in terms of being attacked, how we defend ourselves, and try to answer collaboratively to this cyber attack. The best answer for collaborative attack for me is a collaborative defense, and maybe being more open when a critical infrastructure is being attacked. Okay?
Okay.
Of course, with all the level of security we need to put in place.
Thank you. That's very useful. The concept of collaborative defense as a natural reaction to collaborative offense. That's a very good point. We have only a few minutes left. One of the things I want to talk about is the fact that security is an interesting concept in that how do we know when we are successful? Because by very definition, philosophically, a state of full security is an absence of a threat, an absence of risk. You know, if we are completely secure, it means we have mitigated, transferred, or otherwise resisted all risks and threats to us. But that's a negative, and you cannot prove a negative. I mean, we could get really deep into the classic French philosophical discourse about this. But in the absence of a philosopher here on the panel, how do we measure our success in cybersecurity? I mean, if I'm a financial institution, I guess I could measure it by not losing money, but that's probably the easiest possible situation. How do we measure success here?
Again, I would say to measure the success today is to openly talk about what we are doing and to compare with our colleague, with our friend companies, friend states, to compare where we are, how we are reacting versus this particular attack, how they are reacting, and it gives you an indicator. You will never know exactly, you will never know 100% sure
Yes, exactly.
if you are well secured or not well secured.
Yes.
But being collaborative is the first way to predict, to do some predictive action before corrective action, which is most of the time what we are doing today.
All right.
I would say that in terms of cyber defense, we have a set of measures of international standards to be able to measure the level of security of a system, because before being able to react to cyber attacks, you have to protect your system first.
Yes.
And the way you protect your system, the capacity to measure the level of protection of your system, this is quite well known. You have standards about that. You have information system security management solutions that help you to answer questions, and see where you are, and you can also compare to your colleagues to the other companies.
Okay.
One other point is, another point, especially in France, is that 2 years ago, in the framework of the military law, the government decided to put special protection, special rules for sensitive companies, for opérateurs d'importance vitale, critical national infrastructures.
Yes.
And in the framework of this work, there are also a set of measures that allow them to discuss together and to share information, also potentially to share attacks and know that they are under attack and be able to see, I had to face such attack, did you have the same one? And we can exchange information and also see the attack that has been detected by another company. Was I in a position to be able to detect it as well?
Okay. Well, thank you. That's very useful.
Well,
David.
success of cybersecurity is a question which is very interesting, and I will answer widely if you allow me, because we're not speaking and talking only about large institution or governmental organization.
Okay.
We are talking nowadays about each single company. And well, to measure the success of your cybersecurity, well, you have only, if you've not been attacked, there are only 2 reasons. Either you're lucky, and then you've not been attacked, or you've been deploying a good policy of cybersecurity, because today there is no chance in this area. Meaning by that cybersecurity goes through, first of all, an internal policy of cybersecurity. You have also compliance labels like in France ISO 27000 that give this kind of policy that you can deploy in your company. But further on, then you need to have the right tools that are deployed at each step, in fact, at each level of contact of the ecosystem of your information system with the internet. And then, of course, we're talking about cybersecurity. So most of the time, cybersecurity consists of having a threat coming from outside. It can also, it happen that it comes from inside.
Yes.
But most of the time, what you need first is to have a good policy and have the right tools, and then to have the ability to detect very quickly the threat. Because the more time you give the threat or the virus or the piece of software to spread out in your system, the most valuable the damage will be, and then it will cost your company a lot of monies. The last papers from Gartner, I think, was expecting that was saying that the average value of a cyber attack is around $180 million for large company. It's huge. It's huge because you have certain companies, and everybody takes always as the example of Target in America. Well, it's a $4 billion damage that they had with the cyber attack. But on the other hand, you can take the small companies in France, which have their accounting servers that are completely destroyed, and that is just not allowing the company to receive their monies. So it is also damageable for small companies as well as for employment, and this touch absolutely all the levels of the economic area actually. So to go back to your question, the success of cybersecurity, first of all, is if you've not been attacked, then, and if you have been taken some steps to counter cyber attack, then you are in the right way. But you never know until you're attacked effectively.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. We have only about 2 minutes left, and so what I want to ask is for each of you, very quickly, 30 seconds or less, to say what you think the biggest barrier is to further progress in cybersecurity. What's the obstacle or barrier that you face the most? Is it resources? Is it legislation? Is it technical limitations? Is it infrastructure? So why don't we start with Cyril? What's the biggest barrier?
Well, I don't think it's technological. Well, we have the capacity now to mix various technical information, technical data, technical know-hows. With Interest, we have mixed the big data teams with the cybersecurity teams to build common tools. I think the biggest challenge is that cybersecurity is some kind of insurance. You pay for technology, for tools and so on, for services, but it's an insurance. So if nothing happens, you don't know if you have a threat or not. So we have to convince people, we have to convince CEOs and so on that the threat is real and to give them ways to measure where they are in terms of cybersecurity and that it's worth investing in cybersecurity for their business.
Yes. So by your analogy, for example, cybersecurity is really more like having a fire alarm, a fire extinguisher, and having the fire department, not just an insurance policy in case your building burns down.
You have to be able to put tools, services, measure them, be sure it's always up to date.
David, barriers, obstacles?
Well, biggest barrier, first of all, just to understand that actually the problem is that in cybersecurity you are in a position where you are reacting to an attack. So the attackers have always one step beyond and before you. So you are always in a responsiveness attitude. That is the reason why at iTrust we believed in behavior analysis for 5-6 years ago already. And that is the reason that nowadays, as the former chief of the NSA was saying, the only solution to solve the cybersecurity issues is to work on the behavior analysis, because you will always be late on attackant. So nowadays, with all the complexity of information system, the only solution is to analyze the behavior and then to detect what is normal and what is not normal, and then to detect whether you may have a problem. And this is the future, actually. The biggest barrier is here, and all the former tools, in our point of view, they are obsolete, actually.
Okay, thank you. And Olivier, barriers, obstacles?
Obstacles, well, it's true that resources are very rare. Okay, good resources are very rare. So first of all, good expertise in cybersecurity, an engineer with a very heavy expertise in cybersecurity is very difficult to hire, very difficult to find. Then when you are working for sovereignty program, for example in France, of course, you have some restriction in terms of hiring people from several countries. So this is a second issue we have. So the resources is quite difficult to get. The second thing is most of the time innovation comes from new company, very small company, startups. Because it's a long-term process, as you said, being equipped with cybersecurity equipment, it's a long-term process. This small company with very good idea, with a very good piece of algorithm or software, they have to live maybe 2 years, 3 years before getting a first order.
Yes.
Okay? Most of the time they fail before 3 years.
Yes.
So resources and money for me are the biggest barriers in cyber, because our mind is not set yet to pay first for the result maybe 2 years after. Huh?
All right, thank you. That's very good. So if I could sort of summarize, resources, both in terms of labor and financial capital, are a problem, okay? And I know this because I started my own consulting business. It was 2 years before I made any money. I understand that. And that's, so that's a valuable thing. Your concept is that we really need to come up with this idea of, for lack of a better term, predictive misconduct. We have to be able to guess or estimate behaviorally where the problem will occur before it actually happens.
Exactly.
And
excuse me, this is, I would like to give you an example of what it may look like.
Yes.
It is the same as if you were sick and you go see your doctor. And then when you get into the room, when your doctor is just watching at you, and as by your behavior, then he can say that you're not healthy. He doesn't know what is your disease or what is your problem, but he knows that you're sick. That is exactly the issue here with the technology of behavior analysis in information system.
Exactly. All right. And finally, to change the philosophical mode from one of merely ensuring risk to mitigating risk. All right. Gentlemen, I thank you for your contributions today. Our time is now over. I'd like to thank Cyril, David, and Olivier for your contributions today.
Thank you.
And on behalf of our hosts at the High Committee for Civil Defense, thank you very much and have a nice show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.